live now. Hello, 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 hello. Yes, we are. Thank you for doing this on a Sunday night. We are talking about a new drug that has been approved, reapproved, I guess I should say, on the NHS after a long absence, which will hopefully give people more options when it comes to the progestin or progesterone that they choose in their HRT products. So before we get thrown straight into that, let me reintroduce you again, because it's been a while since we've spoken. Dr. Mandy Leonhardt, author of POI and Early Menopause, or co-author, and What Every Woman Needs to Know About Their Hair and Skin, and BMS accredited menopause doctor and GP. Whew, quite a number of things.
Yeah.
Hello. Now, this word plays havoc with my I don't know why, because it's really quite a simple word, but it plays havoc with my dyslexia. So we are talking about Nalvee.
Yeah.
I don't know. I keep on wanting to call it Navlee. I've got no idea why. But anyway, it is a progestin. It hasn't been on the market here in the UK since 2008. So What is it? Where did it go? And why is it back?
So the pharmacological name is dydrogesterone, and the UK brand name under which it will be available in the UK is called Nalvee, with a double E at the end. In Europe, it's already or has been available for many, many years, and it's called Dufaston or Dufaston. It was originally developed in the 1950s and launched as a molecule and as a medicine in 1961. So we've got over 60 years of safety data. It's a really old drug. And it was discontinued in 2008, so it was no longer made available to the UK from 2008 onwards. And some GPs will still remember it because they would have prescribed it beforehand. But the reasons, as far as I understand, why they discontinued it in the UK market was lack of prescribing. So there wasn't any money to be made, and they withdrew it because it wasn't worth their time and their marketing efforts, and also the WHO.
A bit of a victim of the women's health
Yes.
initiative, wasn't it? Where prescribing rates dropped down, it was sort of like,
yeah. And we did have at the time a lot more convenient types of HRT, which include the continuous combined or continuous types of HRT, which have both estrogen and progestins in it already, and they were quite popular at the time rather than separate hormones like what we focus on now. So we're very happy to be able as doctors to offer this dydrogesterone progestin to our patients, because it is an alternative to micronized progesterone, which we currently prescribe under the name of Utrogestan, Gebretics, or just progesterone. There's only one progesterone in the female body, which is called progesterone, and whereas there are different types of estrogen molecules, but only one progesterone. Now, why are we? Okay.
Yep.
I'm not supposed to do hand gesturing. I'm going to stop the hand gesturing. Sorry, it just gave me a warning. So no hand gesturing. Sorry. Why are we happy about it? Some people I already saw on Instagram saying, "Oh, it's just another synthetic progestin. Do we need it? Why are we happy about it?" Yes, it is synthetic, like all hormones are synthetic, even the so-called body identical hormones. But dydrogesterone is very, very, very closely related to progesterone, the molecule that we really like giving to women, prescribing to women in conjunction with gels and transdermal estrogen options like gels and patches and sprays, but also oral tablets, estrogen tablets. And it gives us more flexibility. So having another progestogen option is a really welcome development, because this is where many women struggle. Most women like a little bit or a little more estrogen, but they struggle finding the right progestin or progesterone.
Indeed, and that's one of the things actually I probably think it would probably be for people like me. I could not use Utrogestan. It gave me incredibly bad reflux. It made me really moody, even moodier than usual. So I mean, that's living hell. And really did very, very little for the, as you've heard me describe it, my year of bleeding endlessly. So is this sort of a good option? And because it's for people like me, it just gives another alternative.
It's a very good option. So chemically, it is an analog of progesterone. It is very, very closely related. In fact, it's almost the same molecular structure. The difference is that some atoms have switched locations, and micronized progesterone is very straight in a three-dimensional model, whereas dihydrogesterone, which is actually made from micronized progesterone by exposing it to UV light, it is actually made from body identical progesterone, but the difference is it is exposed to UV light, and then it kind of very slightly changes its molecular structure and becomes bent. So from being a straight molecule, it becomes bent in the room, and it becomes like three-dimensionally, some of the atoms switch. So we cannot call it body identical, but it is extremely close. It's one of the most closest to what we would call a body identical progesterone. That also means that it has the same low breast cancer risk as micronized progesterone. So we do all know now since WHO study that the synthetic progestins that are man-made, that do not exist in nature, like northisterone, methoxyprogesterone acetate, they have been implicated in a small increased risk of breast cancer. And we don't like that. And it is a small risk, but if we can avoid that risk, if we have options, then let's go with a molecule that doesn't have that risk, or where the risk isn't so high. And we know that micronized progesterone has a very low breast cancer risk compared to other synthetic progestins. And so does dihydrogesterone. So this is a good thing. The other good thing is that it is much more stable as a molecule from a metabolic point of view. It doesn't break down as easily. It's not so fussy like micronized progesterone. It needs to be fat soluble, and it needs to be in a capsule. Like anyone who has taken it knows, you can't cut it in half. It comes in a capsule that's filled with sunflower or grapeseed oil. It's a very fussy molecule. And the other problem with micronized progesterone is absorption. It has a very poor, what we call bioavailability. So once you swallow it, very, very little ends up in the bloodstream. And it needs to be in the bloodstream to get carried to the uterine lining, the lining of your womb. That's the whole point. We're taking this to protect our womb lining from the effects of estrogen. That's why it is offered to women who have a womb. So the dihydrogesterone that we now have has a much better absorption and bioavailability. That's why the dose is a tenth of what it is for progesterone. We typically give micronized progesterone in doses of 100 to 300 milligram, whereas dihydrogesterone we can give in doses of 10 to 30 milligram or 10 to 20 milligram, typically for HRT. There are other indications which require higher doses. It's got a really large range of clinical indication as well. It is used for premenstrual I can't say
PMS or with PMDD?
PMS, no, not PMDD, but PMS. It is used in dysfunctional uterine bleeding, which is such a pain that happens so often with micronized progesterone. Women might like the molecule, but they bleed. So we need to have other options other than the Mirena coil. Not every woman wants a Mirena coil, right? We do like the Mirena coil. It's a real blessing for those who need contraception and bleeding control, and it works really well, but not everyone wants one or can have it. So that's why we think that dihydroprogesterone is a really good option for bleeding control, absorption, but also side effect profile. We do give micronized progesterone orally or vaginally, and vaginally is really not very practical for many women. It is an option. It reduces some of the side effects you've mentioned, Fiona. You did mention the mood side effects, the digestive, the heartburn that you experience. So you can get around that by using vaginally, but is that sustainable? Is that long-term something that women want to do? It's much easier taking a tablet. So the new dihydroprogesterone is much more convenient. It's a tablet, it gets better absorbed, it is more stable. And the good news is, because of its structure, its chemical structure, it doesn't cause sedation, like it doesn't make you drowsy when you take it. And secondly, it also causes a lot fewer mood side effects. It's much more neutral on mood. So it's a really good option for women who struggle with the so-called natural progesterone. But with also having better bleeding control and the convenience of taking it as a tablet.
So couple of the convenience of taking it as a tablet. So if you question over here about perimenopause, can you take it continuously, and will it stop periods if that's the outcome that you want? Or do you take it sequentially, for a couple of weeks, a month? How do you use it?
So we would, as part of HRT, so I'm going to ignore the other indications now, which is endometriosis, dysfunctional uterine bleeding, and there are lots more indications why we might use it or what it's licensed for. In conjunction with HRT, it would have to be personalized. If you already start skipping periods, so if you've not had a period for 6 months and you have very few periods, you might start trying to take it continuously. And the dose initially would probably be 10 milligram. That is what it comes like. But depending on your dose of estrogen, your specialist or your GP, if you're on a higher dose of estrogen, you might need to take 2 tablets a day. So we are really currently waiting for guidance from the British Menopause Society regarding the correct dose of dydrogesterone with the correct in conjunction with doses of estrogen, transdermal estrogen. The normal dose would be 10 milligram continuously with a standard dose, licensed dose of estrogen, transdermal estrogen or oral estrogen. If you're on a buff licensed dose, let's say on 200 microgram patches, you might need to increase it. Now, if you're, as I said, perimenopausal and you haven't had a period for 6 months, you might start taking it continuously. But if you then get a lot of erratic bleeding, you may have to go back to taking it cyclically, which means you take it for 2 weeks each month. You use your estrogen throughout the month every day, your petro spray, your gel, your tablet, and then you take your dydrogesterone tablet for 2 weeks each month. And at the end of that, you would probably expect to get a period. If you no longer get periods at the end of your progesterone phase, you may then try again to go on to take it continuously. The perimenopause is a little tricky. If it has to be decided on an individual basis. Sometimes we try things and it's a bit too early and women bleed again. So it is something that you have to try. If you really have very regular periods, then it is much better to take it in a sequential way. So 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off.
Fair enough. Another question that came in here, which is also on my list, is it less or more androgenic than other progestins?
It's completely androgenic neutral. It's neutral when it comes. It's a very good question. So we do know that northisterone and levonorgestrel, these synthetic progestins, have an androgenic potential, which means they interact with testosterone receptors, which is often not a good thing because it can cause spots, acne, hair thinning, hair growth. So it's not something you want. I'm not saying this happens to all women, but in some women it can have this side effect. Dydrogesterone is completely androgenically neutral, so it does not interact with any other hormone receptors other than the progesterone receptor in the body, which is a really positive thing. It's that's why we do like this molecule very much, because it is it gives us that reassurance of sufficient endometrial protection, while also not having the typical side effects that come with other progestins.
Yeah, and post-menopause, then obviously then it's better for somebody who's having the year of bleeding endlessly like I was, but for just generally anybody who who doesn't really like the idea of having a Mirena coil, can't tolerate progesterone, then this is your next best option if you're not having it in a patch.
So we already have this molecule available in a standard licensed product called Femiston. I'm naming it now. There are no competitors in the UK. Anyone who's taken Femiston in the past and got on really well with it, either sequential Femiston, where you take different colored pills throughout the month when you still have periods, or continuous tablets, which both contain estrogen and dydrogesterone. If you're someone who would like, but the Femiston is origin, so it comes with a small blood clot risk. And as we get older, we want to reduce the blood clot risk from taking HRT. And we really, really want women to, if they can, switch to transdermal options, which have no blood clot risk at licensed doses, as we are aware. So this is a really good option, because if you got on previously really well with Femiston, But now you're someone who's got slightly high blood pressure, or you're over 60, you put a bit of weight on, your blood clot risk goes up with age. Yes. You're looking for a safer option while also being able to stay on a personalized type of estrogen or HRT. So it would be lovely for those women in particular to be able to switch to dihydrogesterone, 10 milligram, and then combine that with a transdermal estrogen and titrate that up. And it is an option for those women who cannot have a Mirena coil or do not get on with any other progestogens.
Okay, and another question on the androgenicity, well, that's a big word, of it. And actually, I've never thought about this myself, so thank you for asking. In comparison to eutrogestin or a natural progesterone, I'd never even thought about the androgenic properties of your natural progesterone. Are there any? And is this one, if it's neutral, is this one then a better option if a natural progesterone has an androgenic property?
Yes, so I would not. Yes, we do know natural micronized progesterone has small anti-androgenic properties, which means it reduces the activity of an enzyme called 5-alpha reductase. And that enzyme converts testosterone to dihydrotestosterone. I don't want to be too chemically here, but anyway, the DHT is the nasty type of testosterone that we don't like because it causes spots, hair thinning, oily skin, greasy hair. It's not the testosterone that you put on your skin to have a better libido. It's what happens with the testosterone after that, and after what happens to your own testosterone or the one you use as part of your HRT. Some women, unfortunately, as we get older, we are more prone to converting the good testosterone that we love for energy and libido to that kind of dihydrotestosterone. And micronized progesterone has a small potential to inhibit that conversion. But I would not say that if you have a genetic predisposition to having acne, to having hair thinning, to having oily skin, the micronized progesterone is not going to cut it. It's not strong enough. It's got a very small effect, beneficial effect. It certainly isn't harmful. So if you have hair thinning with other progestins, like if you're using products that contain northisterone, absolutely try and switch to a different progestin. It might prevent further problems, or it may reduce them. But I wouldn't worry about it.
Give you the splitting hairs there.
Yeah, it's a very small. So that's why, for example, we wouldn't be using micronized progesterone in the treatment of acne, right? Where that is a problem. It's not strong enough. It's not got. We use spironolactone, we use antibiotics, we use other, Roaccutane for treatment of acne. So I wouldn't overplay the anti-androgenic effects of progesterone. I mean, what I would say is if you get on really well with micronized progesterone, because let's be honest, those women who get on well, they love the sleep benefits. They love the calming benefits. It interacts with GABA. It's got a calming for those who get on with it, it's got a calming effect on the brain. It's got some bone benefits, not as much as estrogen, but a little bit. It's got a calming effect. It suppresses oil production a little bit, but not a great deal. We don't really know enough about the anti-androgenic effects. You know what? Stay on it. If you're not bleeding, if you get on with it, if your lining is nice and thin, and it helps you sleep, absolutely no reason to swap, no reason to change. We do not want women to switch. Women who get on with micronized progesterone do not need to switch. That's not the point of this new product. This new product is an option for women who have problems with their current HRT, who are bleeding, who cannot tolerate micronized progesterone because of the side effects they experience, who might be taking it vaginally and are fed up with it. And that is the woman I can see really liking this new progestin.
Yeah. God, I really wish it had been around 18 months ago after I went through that year and bleeding endlessly, which yeah. I don't know. Did you read that chapter in the book where I just sort of described living and then the living hell of the Mirena coil going AWOL and yes. having it replaced again, or an endless thing. But this would have just been so much more simple.
At least you could have tried it. I'm not saying that this progesterone is the end be all be. It is an option. It is an option before you give up. You know, it is either an option where you go and see your doctor and say, look, I've tried this. I really like to be on HRT. I want the benefits that I'm getting for my quality of life, and maybe you've got a risk of osteoporosis or whatever. But I do not get on with any of the progesterone. So what is my next option? And previously, we would have told women, well, you've tried everything. We struggle to find a progesterone that doesn't cause you bleeding. And one of the main reasons why women might discontinue HRT is unscheduled dysfunctional uterine bleeding. And the number of hysteroscopies that we're currently doing is not sustainable. And it is an awful, painful, cruel procedure in some cases that the feedback I get, we do not want women to go through hysteroscopies unnecessarily, right? So.
Right. I mean, of course, if they're handled well and you were given the appropriate pain advice and pain control, then, you know, it's not such a big issue. And, you know, I have had one with no pain control whatsoever, and it was all right. But then I had that was actually just having that was without a biopsy. But then having the biopsy with no pain control, that was a completely different story. So yes, it's a matter, I think, of making sure that you are informed. You have informed choices about your pain control, and you are offered them. And if you don't think they're going to be substantial or substantive enough, making sure you get referred to somewhere that can actually give you a general anaesthetic if you think that is the option for you, and not to feel guilty about asking for it like I did.
Exactly, yeah.
Yes.
But it can prevent, if we can give women better bleeding control by offering them this molecule before they need to go hysteroscopies, and this is the bonus. And I even have some women who tried everything whose last resort is a hysterectomy. You know, they have their bleeding. We haven't been able to get on top of the bleeding, and their gynecologist has offered them hysterectomy so that they can use estrogen only HRT. And I think this should be the last resort unless there's a good clinical reason for it. But so that's why we are quite excited that we can give them another molecule that has been around for over 60 years with a very good safety profile. By the way, so what I want to mention is it is not contraception, it is not a mini pill or anything like that. It does not provide contraception. But the good news is that if you were perimenopausal and you were actually not, or you wanted to let it happen, let you get pregnant. So let's say you're in your early 40s and you have perimenopausal symptoms, you're on HRT. The good news is that if you were to get pregnant on this molecule, it has been shown to be safe. It is actually used during pregnancy. It does not cause any fetal abnormalities, which is a really, really good news in case if you get accidentally pregnant or on purpose, or you will not need to worry about that. But it isn't contraception. So this is important to point out. It does not provide contraception. You have to, if you do not want to get pregnant, you absolutely have to use extra precautions.
Brilliant. All right. Well, this is my list of questions, and you actually answered most of them just by talking. So I don't actually have anything else to ask you. Does anybody else have a quick question over here to throw, or do we think that we're in and out in under 30 minutes?
I think one thing I need to mention is the thing I don't know is when will it become available in the UK, available in the NHS? I don't know.
See, I was assuming that because they'd announced it that it actually was. Was that silly of me to have made that giant?
It might be available in the NHS already. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. That's my fault. But to be fair, it only launched last week. Privately, I've seen ridiculous prices for it.
Really?
I've seen something like £300 for a 3 months supply. On the second day, I prescribed it 2 days after it was launched, and the pharmacy I worked with charged to pay. I obviously said to the patient, don't pay that. That's ridiculous, right? Sometimes private pharmacies take the mickey when they have a new product where there's a great demand and they're importing it and there is no one else offering it. So I would say hang in there, maybe wait a bit longer, because it really should not be expensive. It shouldn't be expensive to the NHS and shouldn't be expensive privately. It shouldn't be more expensive than any of the existing drugs that you already have, you know, even if you are getting a HRT privately. And it also shouldn't prevent your NHS GP to prescribe it on the basis of cost, because it should not be an expensive drug. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
has been around for
it's generic. It's certainly
generic.
not.
It's cheap to make, and price should not be a problem here. But this is something I don't know. I've been asked about this before. Will my GP be able to prescribe it? I have no idea. It can take time for things like this to go onto the formulary, and we need to filter down education to GPs, and hopefully the British Menopause Society will also issue some guidance. We quite like a table where we have the dose of the progesterone in relation to the dose of the estrogen used, so we can be sure that we are providing adequate endometrial protection with each dose of estrogen given to the patient. So we have some idea about continuous femestin or cyclical femestin, 5 milligram. Sometimes women may need 20, but so the dose will vary between 10 or 20 milligram, depending on what indication you use it for. But yes, so I think it is very exciting. We're happy about having this. It's not for every woman, and you do not need to switch if you're on a HRT regime that works well for you. But for those who struggle, we have another option. That's all that matters.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Well, that was, I don't know why I kind of like forgot about that whole sort of being announced and then having to go onto a formulary and taking years.
Yeah.
Yes, there's sorts of things that I kind of like to think, well,
But do you remember how long it took for progestin to get onto the formulary everywhere? And that was a generic, like that was already available many years. In Scotland, they only got it a few years ago, right?
Yeah, that's very true. Yes, you forget about these sorts of things. Needs a national system announced on a system everywhere, like that. That's what it needs. Well, there you go. Brilliant. All right, my lovely. I will let you go. Enjoy the rest of your holiday,
Thank you
for joining us on a Sunday night while you're on an island off in the middle of nowhere having a lovely time. And I will end this over here. I think I already have. So all is done. And I will see you soon.
See you soon, Fiona. Thank you.
Pleasure.